G'day guys, this is Ellis Gelios from the Purebred Reds Adelaide United Fan TV. We are live here from the Brickworks where we've got 3 senior players who are meeting some young fans right now behind me with the FFA Cup on display. We're obviously live for our preview show against the Western Sydney Wanderers on Friday evening. So a little bit of a change up to what we would usually do with our preview show obviously, but we thought that given the game is 24 hours after we would normally put out the usual production that we do, it was better off just coming here live to the Brickworks where we've got access to 3 of the senior team players at around 6:20 p.m. Now I'll just let you guys know off the bat, if you do want to ask one of Carlo Armiento, D'Arrigo or Kristin Konstandopoulos any questions which have a youth league focus specifically, you can do that. You can post it in the thread and I will pass it on to the players, provided that it is appropriate when we speak to them at around 6:20 p.m. Fantastic scenes here. The club obviously doing some much needed promo work, which is fantastic to see. They've been doing a lot of it. They published on the official club website an article about all the community appearances that they did during December, and they did a massive amount. So you can rest assured that the club is doing everything it can to reach out to the community, and we're very fortunate today that there's 3 senior boys here, all on senior team contracts, who are going to be talking to the Purebred Reds in a little while from now. But first of all, it's the matter of the preview show which I have to deliver. So without further ado, we'll get underway. So obviously Western Sydney tomorrow night. Now the first question I just want to ask off the bat, what changes would you make to the team that started against Sydney on Sunday afternoon and played quite dismally and lost? In my opinion, certainly I would make a few changes to that team, and if any of you have any ideas about which players you'd change around for the game tomorrow night from those that played against Sydney, please post it in the thread and I'll address it immediately. Getting underway. We'll get to the ins and outs. So ins for Adelaide is D'Arrigo, who's behind me right now. He's promoted, and also Mirko Boland, which is a massive one, huge in. He's promoted as well. No outs, but unavailable is still Baba Diawara with a knee issue. Lachlan Brook also with a knee issue, and Apostos Stamatolopoulos, who has a quad problem. For the Wanderers, ins for them. Raul Llorente is promoted. Patrick Ziegler is also promoted. Fabian Monge is promoted too, as well as Andrea Agamemnonos. It's a bit of a mouthful. Also comes in for the Wanderers. Outs, Jordan O'Doherty. Don't we know that name quite well? Possibly used to share a locker room with some of the boys behind me. So he's out with an injury, as well as Keanu Bacchus, who's suspended for a week for Western Sydney, and then unavailable for them, Joshy Risdon, who's on international duty with the Socceroos in the Asian Cup at the moment. Oriol Riera, who's got an injury, he's out for a week. Alex Bam-Johan, what a massive out that one is. Arguably their best player, will not be taking to the field tomorrow night, along with Mark Bridge, who's been injured for a while now on the side. He's out for a further 2 weeks. So a fair few outs for Western Sydney, hopefully plays into our hands tomorrow evening. Now I've just got some quick facts and stats to share, and quite some intriguing ones as well, if you don't mind me saying. So firstly, Adelaide United are undefeated in their last 6 A-League games against the Western Sydney Wanderers. We've won 2 of those, and we've won 2 of those and drawn 4. Their last defeat to Western Sydney, our last defeat to Western Sydney, came in October of 2016, if you can believe that much. The Wanderers have lost their last 4 Hyundai League games, 1 more defeat, and they will equal a club record 5-game losing stretch from May to November in 2014. So they are certainly not in the best of form at all, the Western Sydney Wanderers. Adelaide United have conceded just 4 first half goals this campaign thus far, fewer than any other team in the competition, and just 1/3 that of what Western Sydney Wanderers have conceded, which is 12 in that period. We've won 3 of our last 4 games in New South Wales. This is the big one. So upon being in New South Wales for the last 4 games, we've won 3 of them, including the late winner at ANZ Stadium last season, which ultimately sacked one of our favourite ever managers, Josip Gombau. So we've won 8 times against Western Sydney. Against us, they've won 5 times. There's been 8 draws. We've scored 28 goals against them, and against us, they've scored 27. So pretty even in that department. Obviously, as you can see, a lot of fans coming in for photos, trying to engage with the players. It's a fantastic initiative from the club to come here. I'm sure many of these fans appreciate it. And of course, we are only a stone's throw away from our home ground, Cooper Stadium, here at the Brickworks Live. So I'm just going to get into the key components quickly. So we'll just get through this quickly. Firstly, it relates to Marcus Babbel. Now, Marcus Babbel came out and said his team needs to be far more aggressive after their defeat to Perth Glory, and obviously notwithstanding the fact that they've lost a lot of games, particularly recently, they've been on a very poor run. So he believes they need to be a lot more aggressive. Now, this coupled with the fact that we're coming up against a few former Adelaide United players, is this going to be what motivates Western Sydney to really come out and give us a run for our money tomorrow night? You tell me. Post your question in the comments or comment in the thread, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. Just got a very intriguing quote here from Babbel. I can't believe he actually said this. So he said, after they lost to Perth Glory, he said, I have 4 girls at home and everyone can marry our players because we're all nice fellas, but we have to change our mentality on the pitch because we're too nice. So Marcus Babbel with a little bit of a jibe there, but I think it's more aimed at motivating the side, obviously. But yeah, interesting quote to go with there from Babbel. Now, are we due to start Blackwood? Obviously, we saw against Sydney FC how much of a difference he made when he came on. Against Sydney, Marco Kurz decided not to start him. He started Ken Ilso instead in that interchanging number 9 role. When George Blackwood did come on, he made a massive difference, won us a penalty, and we looked a lot livelier certainly from that point. I want to ask whether it's worth considering him to start for the team when we come out against Western Sydney tomorrow night, particularly that there's still not a recognised striker in the team other than him, because Apostolos Stamatopoulos and Baba Diawara are both out injured. So are we due to start Blackwood? Another interesting thing to consider is the fact that Mirko Boland's back. He's again listed as being promoted in the ins and outs on the official website. So do we throw him in the midfield? Is it too early? Has he been match hardened enough after being injured for so long? He's only played a handful of minutes in a couple of youth league encounters. Is he going to be up to it to throw him into such a big game? You tell me again. If you're just joining us now, we've got 3 senior team players behind us, and the FFA Cup is on show. We're going to be joining those 3 players to ask a few questions very soon, in fact, in just a matter of minutes. So we're going to get to that real soon. If you've got a question for either one of Carlo Armiento, D'Arrigo or Kristin Konstandopoulos, which has a youth team focus to it and is obviously appropriate, I'll see if I can propose that to the boys and ask a question on your behalf. Okay, just continuing with the preview while I've got you here. Now, real interesting point to consider. If we take the 3 points tomorrow night against Western Sydney, is their season done? Because that will put it to a 12-point gap between us and them. And given how bad their form is, you'd think that it's highly unlikely that they'll be able to turn their season around if they lose to us tomorrow night in New South Wales. So, very interesting point to consider. This early in the season, it's not even, well, it's just around mid-January, and we're already considering the fact that a giant of the league like Western Sydney, Asian Champions League winners, of course, in 2014, may not be able to make the final series, which is massive under a new manager, the former Liverpool player and German international Marcus Babbel. Anyway, just a few more things to throw towards you guys. So Western Sydney, despite their lacklustre run of late, they did nearly take all 3 points against Perth Glory. Right after we lost to Sydney, they had their game against Perth at Perth. Real topsy-turvy kind of game. You really didn't know which way it was going to swing, but in the end, ultimately, it was too much for Western Sydney to handle, and Perth got away with the points there in a very high-scoring game. 4-3, very entertaining, but no points again for Western Sydney to take out of. So I need to propose the question: are they going to have the stamina to back up after only a 5 or so day period to do the same against us when we come out and play them tomorrow night? Again, if you're just joining us, we've got 3 Adelaide United players in the background. I will be joining them in a matter of minutes to ask a few questions and give you guys a great view of the FFA Cup in the background. Just a few more things to consider, guys. So there's a massive fixture jam coming up for Adelaide United. Obviously, it's the small turnaround from the Sunday game right now against on Friday against Western Sydney, so only a 5-day turnaround. And then we've got a game next Wednesday away to Perth, and then away to Central Coast next Saturday. So it's a real fixture jam coming up. Do we have the cattle in amongst our squad to be able to get away without rotating the team and back up for all of those games? I'm very hesitant about that personally, but we've seen Marco Kurz not make too many changes throughout the entire season. He's stuck to a spine. So will that change now that we've got 4 games in a very tight 2-week period? You tell me. Again, if you've got a question or comment, please throw it in the thread and I'll answer it as soon as I can. Jack Marinos kicks us off. He says, "You are the best." Well, thank you very much, Jack. That's very kind of you. I'm glad you're watching. Glad this has been an informative show for you so far, I assume, and that's why the praise there in that comment. So thanks a lot for joining the thread, Mr. Marinos, and contributing with that comment. Now I'm about to get to the players, guys, but just before I do, there's just a few little things that I want to touch on which relate to off-the-pitch matters. There's an ownership article that came out about how our owners are keeping anonymous, and no one really knows why. What do you make of that? Is it right that that's happening? I wonder if you read the article. We are actually going to be doing a topical video very soon about the state of the ownership and the good things and maybe the things that we have a bit of a reason to be a little bit worried about, which surrounds the anonymity of the ownership. So that's coming out soon, but I was very interested to see how the advertiser got on board and started asking the questions early on about the ownership surrounding Adelaide United. So we're going to have that topical video coming out very, very soon. Also, there's a new club podcast officially. Adelaide United's official podcast has launched on It's a collaboration with Triple M. I listened to the first episode today with Ryan Kiddo and one of the W League girls, and it was very, very entertaining. They really sort of got to know, or allowed us to get to know who the person is behind the player, and that's a wonderful incentive from the club. So look out for that official new podcast being done by Adelaide United. A bit of other news. So there's a Red Army Family Day happening at Martin on Saturday. Now the W League have a huge game. The W League girls against Western Sydney, and the youth boys also play Brisbane Roar in a very important game to their youth league season. I'm just going to wrap up real quickly, guys, because we're running short on time. In other news, Marcos Flores, the club's only ever Johnny Warren medalist, did sign for Adelaide City today. What did you make of that move? Obviously, we saw a bit of trouble going on at City in relation to player contracts, and they seem to have put that under the carpet now by signing Marcos Flores, a club legend for Adelaide United. What you make of him after the whole Melbourne victory move is down to you, but still the club's only ever Johnny Warren medalist. Just get through some questions quickly. So Apollo Gell says, "Love the show, Ellis. Thanks for bringing us the live footage." No worries, Apollo. Thanks for tuning in. Arata Ishimoto says, "Hello to the players. I will pass that on to them from you, Arata." George Ragius says, "Thoughts on what striker would be a good fit for us?" I actually floated the idea of Mitch Duke not so long ago, George, and you can access some previous episodes to get a more in-depth analysis of why I believe Mitch Duke is the player for us to bring in, because he's a free agent at the moment. I'll just get to the players very, very shortly, guys. All quiet on the transfers front as well. Perhaps a little bit disappointing given that we're really riding through January quite quickly, and obviously the January window will inevitably close, and yet we don't hear anything cement happening in a transfer rumour sense. So there's that to consider amongst everything. I want to talk about former Adelaide United player Awema Bill quickly and just give a shout out to him. Now, one of my really good friends who's moved overseas played with Awea at Campbelltown City about 10 years ago, and when Awea first came on the scene at Adelaide, I really loved how positive he was, and he was always a really exciting player, but I always thought that he was a little bit technically lacking, and I questioned what my friend said to me, my good friend who said that he'd play for the Socceroos one day. Well, I've got to eat my words and say Awea fantastic stuff, not only just playing for the Socceroos but contributing in a massive way, bailing us out of a definite jail term the other night, scoring a fantastic goal against Syria, and obviously the celebration about mental health and reaching out to people through his celebration. Fantastic stuff, Awea, and we're very proud that he's a former player of ours, doing big things for the Socceroos. Guys, that pretty much wraps it all up. In terms of the preview, it's a very short one, but obviously there are some exceptional circumstances going on because I'm about to join the three players behind me. Scott Brown quickly says, are we going to sign any new players in the next few weeks? I assume there will be definitely one there, Scott, but I'm not quite sure who that's going to be, but you can definitely bet your money on the fact that we will bring someone into the club. George Ragius says, should Isaias be a Socceroo? Yeah, definitely, 100%. You know, it's a wasted opportunity given that he got his citizenship and wasn't put in that Socceroos Asian Cup team. So, yeah, there you go. He should definitely be in there. I'm going to get over to the players now, guys, and give you a great view of the FFA Cup as well, which is on display. So here were the boys. They finished talking to fans for about an hour here at the Brickworks. Going to start us off by kicking the ball rolling with Carlo Armiento. Mr. Armiento, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, great, thanks. How's it been at Brickworks today?
Yeah, it's been good seeing the little kids come out and school holidays.
Yeah. Beautiful. Now, Carlo, I want to ask you. You made your debut not too long ago against Melbourne Victory in that 2-0 loss away at Melbourne. What's it been like since making your debut and then resuming duties with the youth team as well as everything you do in the senior team as well? Has it made you feel any different in regards to how you go about your business, or is it just a case of getting on with it now that you are a professional footballer?
I think it's just the case of getting on with it, to be honest, because it's only one game. As a footballer, you're going to play hundreds of games, so it was a good stepping stone. I think it was everyone's dream to make your debut, especially against Melbourne Victory. So yeah, it was a good experience, especially away over there.
No worries, Carlo. Thanks so much for speaking to us. I'm just going to move on to D'Arrigo now. This might be a bit of a hard shot. All right, he's going to come to me. How you going, Louis?
Good, mate. You?
Good to see you. Yeah, really good. Thanks. Now, I want to ask you, Lewis, worked very, very hard to earn a senior team deal.
Yeah.
You've now got that senior contract, but so soon after you got it, there you are celebrating an FFA Cup win with the senior team. What was that like? Was that surreal for you as a player?
Oh, I can't explain the feeling it was. Even though I didn't play, it was just a great feeling running to the pitch and hugging my teammates with it. So it was really good.
Brilliant. And I assume one day you hope to be playing in one of them yourself, obviously?
Or maybe one day, but hopefully next year we get an opportunity to play in a FFA Cup, maybe the final as well.
Brilliant, Louis. I just want to ask you quickly, just to finish off, what's it been like in the youth team so far this season with the youth league? Obviously, there's a focus towards the NPL that's going to be starting soon, but there is the youth league going on too. Just talk us through how the team has gotten through that and what you hope to achieve between now and the finish line.
I think the focus isn't on NPL right now. I think it's just to finish NYL and see how good we can get on the line, but we're coming fourth right now, so if we get a result this weekend, maybe we can see if we can come third or second. So it's been good. Hopefully we can finish this and have a good NPL.
Huge game against Brisbane Roar on Saturday at Martin. How have they been going, and is there any special attention you've got to pay towards anyone when we come out against Brisbane on Saturday at Martin?
They're coming first right now, but when we played away, we drew with them 2-2, so I think it's going to be a great match, and hopefully everyone can come down and support us.
No worries. All the best, Louis. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
We're just going to finish off speaking to Kristin Konstandopoulos. Kristin, how are you today?
good.
What's it been like doing these player appearances in the community? It's obviously very important that there's engagement with all the fans, and it's great to see we've got 3 senior players doing it. How have you found doing it today here at Brickworks?
It's been good. A lot of people coming out, a lot of young kids, which is always good to see. So yeah, it's been good.
Brilliant, mate. I just want to ask you specifically, so obviously you play professional football for a professional club with your brother Nathan. What was it like growing up around him? Did he play much of a mentoring role in your own development? And yeah, just tell us how it's been, obviously becoming a senior player in the same team as your own brother.
Yeah, it's been pretty great. We've always been close, only being 2 years apart, so we've always played together. We've always kind of battled together to be the better player and whatnot, which has helped drive us and whatnot. So it's been pretty surreal for us because we loved want to watch Ali United as younger listeners. So we went to every game and stuff, so it's great to be able to play represent Ali United together, especially.
And I'm led to believe you're both central players. Can you tell us what difference you are, what difference there is to your game and Nathan's?
Nathan's a lot more powerful and fast than Ryan. I think I'm more of a technical player than what he is. But he's definitely got more of that power and speed than I do.
No worries. Thanks so much for speaking to us, Kristin Konstandopoulos, and for that matter, all 3 of the players behind me today, the senior players. I'm just going to get a quick shot of that beautiful FFA Cup. What a sight that is after the game against Sydney. Packed out crowd to see us lift the FFA Cup later in 2018. Guys, this is me signing off from the Brickworks. It's been great bringing you a live show with 3 players behind me. Make sure that you come out and support them when they play Brisbane Roar at Martin on Saturday. There's obviously a family day being put on by the Red Army, and it's a double header because the W League girls play Western Sydney. So very important games for both our W League and National Y League teams. So make sure you get out. Fantastic from the club again to grant the community such fantastic access to 3 senior players at the Brickworks. Hopefully there's much more of it to come throughout the season. This is Ellis Gelios. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you real soon. Cheers.